I wanted to, from my personal experience, my son was a professional athlete. And so he was 21 years, 9 months, 29 days whenever he passed away. And thankfully he was home. He raced dirt bikes, motocross and supercross. And he had bought some land down the road and built a track and whatnot. And so like, I don't know who, I think you were just saying, um, he walked out the door that morning to go meet up. He was finishing up the track and meeting up with friends, and they were going to race and ride and practice, and then he was leaving to fly out of town for a race that next week. And so, yeah, I mean, you're going about your normal business, and you hug your kid bye and plan for later that day, and then you get a phone call, to go to the hospital. And when I got the phone call, the first thing that went through my head was, what in the heck did this kid break again? I'm frantically, packing, or I'm sorry, changing my clothes, putting jeans on, and head out the door. And I had this sense of urgency, and it's a whole nother story, but I knew that this one was different. And so, I rushed to the hospital. And when it comes to other people becoming involved, or this this need or this desire that people have to have all of the gory details, started for me and so many other parents that I have since met. It starts almost instantly. We In the area where we live at, where I live at, there was, the online newspaper sources. So like, instead of the paper boy tossing a newspaper in your driveway, it's online, and most of the time it's on Facebook. So the first, what I felt like was a huge violation of privacy, was somebody showing up that worked for a newspaper and, taking a photo of him being put in the back of the ambulance.
Oh my
Thankfully, that
God.
was, yeah, and it was online before I had called my mom, before I had called my brother, before my ex-husband, had the opportunity to call family members. People were, being called and texted because of this one photo and his name. So the person who had shown up to get the scoop for the online newspaper article had Googled the address, talked to somebody that was there. However, they found out, but they had my son's name. And so it began at that point. Because he was a professional athlete, um, I was at the hospital. I walked in, and he had already he was already gone. Um, oh gosh, I didn't want to do this.
Oh,
I'm sorry. No,
no,
I
you're
didn't mean.
fine. My poor my mama heart hurts for you because that's devastating.
And that's really that's really what I wish people would think about when overstepping they're overstepping the privacy bounds.
Can
My
I
son
ask
had
you?
decided, yes.
I'm sorry, just can I ask you a question?
hmm
Did you say it had been about 6 years ago? Did I get the date right?
August 12th, 2016.
Okay, so, and I can still hear pain in your voice.
Oh, forever.
Does what happened, not just because obviously your child's gone, so that will always forever hurt, but does the fact that they did that and put his image out there like that, did that make things harder on you?
Absolutely.
And does
It
it
was
still affect you?
absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
Yeah. And thank you for asking me that. That's kind of why I don't normally jump on panels, but that's kind of what I wanted to try to explain. Was like, it started that night with, the newspaper art with the one person from the local newspaper. And then hours later, my son had decided to be organ donor on his own. And so I stayed with him until Life Bank showed up, and then they did the honor walk. And, I spent hours in the room with him. I remember the nurse coming in. And these are things that every parent who has or will lose a child, they're going to go through the same things. When when they told me that Life Bank was coming, to me, I had more time with him. I could lay with him. I could, hold his hand. I could sit with him
Yeah.
until the very last second, the very last minute. I gave him his last bath, like I gave him his first bath. Um, and so when Life Bank showed up and, um, I had to say goodbye to him, I walked back through the hospital out the door that I came in, and there's people that are outside. I mean, it's 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's people outside because he was an athlete. And I compare this to some of these cases that just get so big
Yeah.
that social media is going crazy. And so I didn't have this frenzy, I had a separate frenzy, but these are things that now, whenever I go back to that time and I go through the timeline, or every year when these dates show up, August 12th through the 17th, every single day I know where I was at and at what time and what I was feeling. And it's like
Mhm.
reliving it every year, not to mention every holiday, every specific, or important day to me or to him. These are the things that constantly pop up. Walk into my car, you know, because now I have to go home and I have to plan all of these things and I have to make these important phone calls and I'm focused on doing those things. And so when I walk out the back, the door that I came into and I see, 7 or 8 people with phones or with cameras in their hands wanting to ask questions, I thankfully didn't have it in me to talk. But by saying nothing, to some of them meant that something nefarious had gone on. And that's where it starts. When a
Oh.
family asks for privacy, sometimes we're asking for privacy because the emotions are so much bigger than what we are willing to even think about carrying. It doesn't mean that we're hiding something. But it seems like today people go right into something nefarious is going on. And in my case, by asking for privacy or saying I didn't have any comments or I wasn't up for any questions or whatnot, that turned into some of those people that were in the parking lot asking for or trying to file the paperwork in order to get the medical records or the accident reports. Um, because just saying I'm not interested in what you want from me right now isn't good enough for them. They want like the gory details, I call it. At the funeral home the next day, some of the same people, and at this point, then we had some of the motocross magazines and things that were there. And it's the same thing. They want the photo, the up close, personal. Let's get the crying mom or the crying dad. And again, I said, I'm not interested in talking because I just had so much that I on my plate and I knew I wasn't going to be able to get through it. I knew it was way much bigger than what I am, and I was barely holding it together. I had a million thoughts going through my head. Like, how do you pick out a casket for your baby, for your child? I mean, my son, 21 years, 9 months, 29 days, and my baby, that's my baby. It's my one and only baby. And I'm walking into a building to try to make these decisions, which are the last most important thing that I can do for him. That's the last thing I can do for him. And the last thing I'm worried about is what somebody outside of that building thinks about me, not knowing that by saying to these people, I'm not interested in talking to you right now. I have a lot to process. Maybe later, something like that, all it automatically turns into I'm hiding something. It was the same thing for his dad. And so at the funeral home, the day of the calling hours, and then the second day we had the funeral, it was over. I mean, I there was over 1,000 people, just under 1,000 people, but there were so many people that had shown up. And I remember standing at his casket and I wasn't going to move. Every single person that had flown in or drove from across country or from down the road, if they were going to stand an hour, 2 hours, or the 4 hours to pay their respects to my son, I was going to hug their neck and I was going to thank them. I was going to make sure that they knew that I was so happy that they thought enough of him. And so it became an all day thing from 8:30 in the morning until almost midnight or a little after midnight. Um, but it was then that we realized that some of his social media was being, screenshotted and shared. So we privated all of his social media. So I'm not sure if maybe Kylie's family had the same thing go on, but for us, my ex-husband and I, we privated everything that we could possibly private because it's almost like you have this feeling of um I want what's left of him is mine and I'm not willing to share it yet. Even if you've seen the picture, you've seen the video, it's mine.
It's what you
And
have left.
yes, and
Yeah.
that's the most important thing to me
Oh my
because I
God.
don't have anything left. And so I want to release what I want to release when I'm ready to share it. Um, See, there's people on YouTube, and I say that as respectful as I can, but there's people on YouTube that they worry about being porn bombed. They worry about copyrights. They worry about trolls. They worry about terms of service violations. They worry about other channels, coming at them. And what grieving parents, and let me tell you, there's hundreds, if not thousands of us that are in the true crime community, and we're in all of these chats. We're in the chats. I saw this firsthand for myself the very first time that I ever spoke up and said, I've had enough. I've heard enough. If you can talk this way about this deceased child or about that person's deceased adult child, then that means that my son and his memory are also up for grabs, that you have no respect for him, and that if somehow I cross your radar, then this is what happens to me. Then I have to defend the honor of my son because I said something or I disagreed. And so I spoke up in someone's chat and I had just typed that in a super chat because I just felt like I needed to be heard. I needed to be heard that you may not know me and you may not relate to me because I do lurk. I've lurked on this channel for a long time because it's hard for me to type in the chat or to speak because everyone in my whole life has already kind of abandoned or rejected me because my grief is so big. So I hope that makes sense. It's like people, nobody wants to deal with grief. People
It
kind of,
does, but you're welcome here. And I see you around in a lot of places, and you're always so kind. And you're obviously a strong woman. So I want to be the first to thank you for having the nerve to come up here and sharing this because people need to hear this. And I don't like that you're having to relive it a little bit to tell it because there's no way that you're not. But that's
right.
incredibly brave and honoring of your son's memory, even to speak out, I think. And so thank you. And ooh, I'm about to cry with you, but well, I'm
Especially
so
today, I
sorry.
feel too. You're so
Yeah.
right. Yeah. It was really,
I
really brave
appreciate
of you
that.
as a woman to talk about it.